Chapter 1. Arrival in the new town. A heated departure. The car journey to the new town was far from peaceful. Alex slumped in the back seat, his arms crossed defiantly. The arguments inside the car were heated, each member of the family contributing to the cacophony of discontent. "I can't believe you're making us move to this nowhere town." Alex's voice was sharp, cutting through the air. "Why do we have to leave everything behind?" His father, Richard, tried to remain calm. "It's a new opportunity for me, and for us as a family. You need to understand that." "It's not fair," Alex retorted. "You're dragging us to some place we've never heard of." His mother, Laura, attempted to mediate. "It's going to be an adventure. We'll make the best of it." The tension in the car was palpable, each member struggling with their own emotions. Alex's frustration was met with silence from his siblings, who were more apprehensive than angry. As the car rounded a bend, the atmosphere outside grew increasingly foreboding. The sky darkened, casting an eerie pall over the landscape. Suddenly, a large black cat with glowing red eyes appeared on the side of the road, staring intently at the car as it passed. Its gaze seemed almost supernatural, adding an unsettling note to the already tense mood. First impressions of the villa. The car finally pulled up in front of the villa, and Alex's anger was momentarily forgotten as he gazed upon their new home. The villa was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its towering spires, ornate stonework, and expansive grounds exuded an otherworldly grandeur. The architecture was both stunning and intimidating, with intricate carvings in a sprawling, ivy-clad facade. Alex's father, Richard, looked equally stunned. "I don't think this is the right place," he muttered, stepping out of the car and scrutinizing the address on his phone. "This seems too extravagant. Maybe we've come to the wrong house." Laura, while equally impressed, tried to reassure him. "It's probably just different from what we expected. Let's take a look inside." The family began the process of unloading their belongings. Each box was marked with its contents and carried into the villa by Alex and his siblings. The interior of the house was just as grand as the exterior, with high ceilings, vast hallways, and rooms filled with antique furnishings. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight streaming through large, arched windows. Alex and his family set about unpacking. Boxes were opened to reveal an array of household items, dishes, clothes, and personal mementos. The scent of cardboard mixed with the faint aroma of old wood and mildew. As they arranged their belongings, the sheer scale of the villa became more apparent. Rooms were methodically sorted, the kitchen was stocked with essentials like a large pot for stew, jars of spices, and a bottle of soy sauce. The living room was filled with family photos and cozy furniture, while the bedrooms were organized with bedding and personal items. The family worked together, but the earlier tensions lingered in the air. As dusk fell, the villa took on a different character. Shadows lengthened, and the grandeur of the villa seemed to deepen, shrouding it in a sense of mystery. Alex's room, though large and elegantly appointed, felt cold and unfamiliar. Despite the excitement of a new start, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was not quite right. With the family settling down for their first night in the villa, each member wrestling with their thoughts and the looming sense of the unknown. The villa's beauty and the strange encounter with the black cat set the stage for the mysteries and adventures to come. Unease in the new home. As night fell, the family gathered in the spacious dining room for their first meal in the villa. The room was elegantly decorated, with a long, polished oak table and high-backed chairs. The light from the chandelier cast warm, golden hues over the table, creating a cozy atmosphere despite the lingering sense of unease. Laura, Alex's mother, had prepared a simple dinner: roast chicken, vegetables, and freshly baked bread. The aroma of the meal filled the air, a comforting contrast to the chilling evening. However, as they began to serve themselves, a strange sensation crept over Alex. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Alex glanced around the room, the shadows cast by the chandelier seeming to move and flicker unnaturally. His eyes darted to the corners of the room where the darkness seemed to gather, almost as if it was closing in. "Does anyone else feel that?" Alex asked, his voice low and tense. His father, Richard, looked up from his plate, a puzzled expression on his face. "Feel what, Alex?" "It's like someone is watching us from the shadows," Alex said, trying to articulate the disquiet that was creeping up his spine. Laura, attempting to ease the tension, offered a reassuring smile. "It's just the new house, Alex. It's different from what we're used to. The darkness and the unfamiliarity can play tricks on the mind." Emily, Alex's older sister, nodded in agreement. You're probably just adjusting to the new environment. It's perfectly normal to feel unsettled at first. Jake, Alex's little brother, looked around with wide eyes. It does seem a bit spooky, he admitted. Richard, trying to stay positive, added, we've been through a lot today. It's only natural to feel a bit off. Let's focus on settling in and making this place feel like home. Laura served the meal, and the family tried to push past their uneasy feelings. They spoke about their day, discussing the villa's features and their plans for the next few days. The conversation was light, but the sense of being observed lingered in the back of their minds. As the meal continued, the feeling of being watched grew more pronounced. The shadows in the corners seemed to shift, and the air felt heavier, almost oppressive. Alex's gaze repeatedly darted to the darkened corners of the room, where he could almost make out shapes moving just beyond the edge of the light. Alex's parents exchanged concerned looks, sensing their children's discomfort. Laura tried to distract them with conversation about their plans for unpacking and organizing the house, but the atmosphere remained tense. Maybe we should take a break from unpacking tomorrow and explore the town a bit, Laura suggested, hoping to lift their spirits. Richard, still uneasy, glanced around the room. I agree. A change of scenery might help us all adjust. The family finished their meal in relative silence, each member struggling to shake off the strange feeling. As they cleared the table and began to tidy up, the sense of unease did not dissipate. The villa seemed to be full of hidden corners and dark spaces that only added to the feeling of being watched. After dinner, the family retired to their respective rooms. Alex's room was large and furnished with antique pieces, an ornate bed with a heavy quilt, a carved wooden wardrobe, and a large window overlooking the darkened grounds. Despite the luxurious furnishings, Alex felt a sense of isolation and discomfort. As he lay in bed, the sounds of the villa seemed to come alive, the creaks of the old wood, the whispers of the wind through the cracks in the walls. The feeling of being watched intensified, making it difficult for Alex to relax. In the adjoining rooms, his family also struggled with the sense of unease. Richard and Laura discussed the day's events in hushed tones, their conversation punctuated by the occasional creak of the house settling. Concludes with Alex tossing and turning in bed, his thoughts racing. The mysterious ambiance of the villa, coupled with the eerie feeling of being observed, sets the stage for the challenges and mysteries that lie ahead. The family's attempt to adjust to their new home is marked by a growing sense of foreboding, hinting at the supernatural elements that will soon come into play. Chapter 2. The Unseen Visitor. A restless night. The night wore on with an unsettling quiet. Alex tossed and turned in his ornate bed, struggling to find a comfortable position. The shadows in his room seemed to dance on the walls, and the distant sounds of the house settling did nothing to soothe his frayed nerves. Suddenly, an overwhelming thirst jolted Alex awake. His throat felt parched, and he desperately needed a drink. He glanced at the clock on his bedside table. It was well past midnight. As Alex rubbed his eyes and tried to shake off the drowsiness, he noticed a figure standing at the foot of his bed. The moonlight filtering through the window cast a ghostly glow around the intruder. Alex's heart raced as he took in the sight of the mysterious figure. The man standing before him was unlike anyone Alex had ever seen. His long, black hair cascaded down to his waist, shimmering like a river of ink. His eyes were a deep, unsettling red, glowing with an otherworldly light. The man's presence was both captivating and menacing, a strange mix of elegance and danger. Alex's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to call out, to move, but his body was frozen in place, paralyzed by fear and awe. The stranger's eyes locked onto his, and a chilling silence filled the room. The man's presence. The mysterious man did not speak. Instead, he stood still, his gaze steady and unblinking. His clothes were dark and flowing, blending seamlessly with the night. Despite his stillness, there was an undeniable aura of power and mystery about him. Alex tried to muster the courage to speak. "Who are you?" His voice was barely a whisper, tremulous with fear. The man did not respond. Instead, he took a slow step closer to the bed. The air seemed to grow colder with each movement, the temperature in the room dropping noticeably. Alex's throat tightened, and the thirst he felt earlier intensified. Unable to bear the dryness any longer, Alex sat up in bed. "I need water," he said, his voice trembling. He reached out to grab the glass of water on his bedside table, but his hand shook uncontrollably. The mysterious man's eyes followed Alex's every movement, a faint smirk appearing on his lips. His presence was both reassuring and terrifying, a paradox that left Alex feeling disoriented. Without a word, the man began to fade, his form becoming increasingly insubstantial. The dark red glow of his eyes dimmed, and the ethereal light around him dissipated like mist in the morning sun. Within moments, he had vanished, leaving only the chill of his presence behind. Alex stared at the spot where the man had been, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was now eerily quiet, the previous feeling of unease replaced by a heavy silence. When dawn's light began to creep through the curtains, Alex was still awake, his mind racing. The encounter had left him shaken and confused. He tried to convince himself that it had been a dream, but the lingering feeling of the man's gaze and the coldness in the room felt all too real. As the family began to stir, Alex struggled to put the experience out of his mind. His father's voice calling him for breakfast brought him back to reality, but the memory of the mysterious visitor lingered, a haunting reminder of the villa's secrets. With Alex heading downstairs, trying to act normal despite the unsettling encounter. The strange visitor's presence hints at the supernatural elements lurking in the villa and sets the stage for the unfolding mysteries and challenges that Alex and his family will face.